So, hi everyone, I'm Gil. We don't have a lot of time for this talk, but now even less. So, let's talk about cats. No, we're going to talk about testing cats because testing with AI is cool. Um, I'm a trainer and a consultant, and I work with people, developers, testers, everyone. Today, we're going to focus on developers, of course. Um, and you can find me all over the internet doing stuff like this, especially talking about testing and AI lately. Um, I want to start at the what we want to achieve. Why are we testing? We want more confidence. We probably want um, as much as testing as we want and as much automation that we can in order to just leave behind what we did, know that it works, and move on to the next stuff. And there's a lot of next stuff. Um, how do we do this? Well, up until like this AI thing, um, we kind of worked, and today I can generate a lot of stuff for us. I'll show you a couple of examples, but this session is not about generate something for me. Well, not generate a test for me, because if we do that, well, you probably, if you have tried generating tests, there's something that you need to know that it will generate whatever it wants, not whatever you want. We'll talk about that as well. Um, but it's not just generate tests for me, and this is what sessions like. If you're using either AI outside your ID or inside the ID with Copilot or Cursor or whatever, there are things that we can do. It not just exactly as like do this for my code or generate code. And we'll talk about this because what I want you to come out with is a couple of ideas of what you can do to improve your testing, therefore improve the quality of the things, therefore get more coding time. So yeah. Um, so like I said, it's like it is really a new world, and the more I work with it, the more I have more ideas of how to use AI. Um, and it's true that a few weeks ago I was with a client, and I saw like a developer working on on his machine, and then he stopped. He was staring at the screen. Said, "What happened?" He said, "I ran out of tokens." So this is like a very weird time to be a developer. Um, so if you actually want to like take hold of harness whatever AI gives us, we need to experiment with a lot of things because it can do it. So I want to give you a couple ideas. Why am I showing you cats? Because my examples were built on uh, this site, the cat API. There is something like that. And it's exactly what it seems. If you like dogs, there are also dogs. So you have a full schema here of all the APIs you can do. It's a practice site, and it's like an image thing. You can vote on cats, add cats, whatever. Not important for our talk, but just to have the context because there's going to be cats involved. So I'm going to run through a couple of ideas that you can do using AI. Um, and I'm not going to go deeply in them because we don't have a lot of time, but this GitHub repo is up on GitHub, so you can check it later. So first of all, when we're testing AI APIs, we kind of think, well, I've got this API, let me check it. Okay, what can we do? Well, you can write a prompt like this and say, hey, here's the schema, give me a list of test cases. These are the votes endpoint, and you can get a list for all the APIs. By the way, this is like interesting. I deliberately give it a topic rather than a specific API, so it find out there's all the post and get votes, but there's also is it get images votes. So it's it reads the schema, it knows the schema, it relates to the schema, gives you ideas. Get basic functionality, edge cases, authorization. Nice. Let's say you don't have time and you say, well, give me just the basic functionality, no edge cases, so on. You can ask it. Organize this for me. First, valid cases, and it will do this because GPT transforms stuff. So you get all the things that may be interesting for you right now. So organizing stuff. If you know what you're doing, and you probably should be, there's an upload image API, and I said, well, this one needs extra care, needs extra testing. What do you suggest? And if you know where to ask, you get like JPEG size limitations or dimensions or upload files that are not image. So it can give you a lot of ideas. And usually when we talk about testing our code, it's our code, right? We wrote it, we know it. But it can give us ideas. Well, what happens if someone asks, tries to upload a PDF file? Well, my code needs to do something about it. So it's not just a test that they need to test. It's like a test and the code that they need to change. So it can give you a lot of ideas of things that you might have missed. Okay, final thing about planning like this, I asked for, there are APIs that are about headers. Do we need to play with the headers and the non-default things? So you get like bearer token, stuff like that, and then XX API. So all kinds of things that if you know your schema, you know the material that you're trying to test, you can really dig deep into that, and you can get a list, and you don't have to do everything here. Some of them are like a bit more integrated. Some of them are not just like regular unit API tests, but you can decide what to do with it. Maybe you decide to write a unit test rather than an API test because this gave you an idea of the code that you need to change. So that's a list of things that you can do in terms of planning, but usually as developers, this is what our go-to would be. However, there's a bit more that we probably need to do because usually single API is easy to test, but it's not what we're really after. What we're going to be after is running a couple of APIs one after the other. And we want to do this. So first of all, we can plan for that. So give me a list of a series of CRUD operations. This is mostly CRUD of the votes. No test for each one, but a combination of calls. And this is like where it kind of veers into its own way, create a new vote, get all votes from my account, specific vote. And you can see that, yes, I can run these one by one. Does it make sense? Not much. Okay, so I asked a different thing. Said, well, can you show me 5 more scenarios? Not in the details, but each scenario needs to follow a sequence a user would do. So it depends on your application. If it's about cats and like voting, you'll get something similar to what you're going to do. If not, it can give you ideas, and you can like here again. You need to know what application does. So casual browser voting session, yeah, it makes sense. Weekly cat rating contest, but it gives you an idea of like run this API and this API and this API and this API. This is how someone might use your API. So ideas for that. Other things, concurrency. This is something that we usually don't think about when we're testing APIs because like we call it functionally, see if it works. But what happens if either someone calls the same API concurrently, or even the same user calls it with concurrently, like different or multiple users? What kind of scenarios? Well, you can get a lot of these, like upload and vote immediately, or kind of conflict, same image voting, one votes up and one votes down at the same time. What happens? So for this to work, this works actually. But for this to work, you need to be aware that your APIs are going to be called in different ways. They can be called concurrently. They can be called by users with different permissions, one after the other after this one. So you have to load the idea into your chatbot, and it will give you something to think, well, this might happen. Well, what happens when I do that? Because APIs don't live by themselves. They usually come out in batches. Okay, so that's one thing. Final thing I wanted, another thing that I can do, and this is like, um, I don't know about you. I don't have all the time in the world. So if I don't have time, well, maybe prioritization will happen. How does prioritization work? Well, the same as you would think. AI was trained on different applications and testing different applications. So it knows what scenarios are usually more risky that need to be tested. And you can get a list of these things out of the, this is a continuation. All this thing was one single session. So these are the same user scenarios. It kind of prioritizes things for me, and I can say, okay, I'm going to attack those with the things that I have. So prioritization, organization, and planning and ideas, cool things you can do. One more thing they can do is data preparation. Because we're dealing a lot with JSON, stuff like that, and we're sending stuff, and we need to like create stuff, and it's usually, yes, IDs help us, and but who likes editing JSON files? Nobody does. So you can ask for input data for a single API. The one of the cases there, what's post, give me the following cases, and it creates a JSON that I can send. Now, is that a good thing? Yeah, that's not that bad if you look at that. Things that I might change, I would probably create this differently, but you can see that there's like hints already. XYZ123 means that it could be any ID, user underscore 123. Okay, so on invalid image ID, what makes an invalid? It's a non-existent. So it kind of translated things into IDs, which are not bad ideas. Again, it can be improved, but yeah, if your JSONs are like giant JSONs, you can use that. It could create a lot less errors than you will. Okay, that's the one set of data, like input data, but you might also have result data that you want to assert against. So you can ask for that. Give me assertion data for the cases. It will create the, wait for this to load. We won't wait. Something like that. And you can see that the ID is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Why? Because ID is created dynamically. You need to know what you're going to get, what you need to compare, like this is important to be a success. However, this I'm going to ignore because it's going to be dynamic. How do I know that? I know the system works. I wrote it. So assertion data is something that you can use to write your asserts or expects or whatever. And you can, of course, do that for sequences. Give me all the JSON input that I need for one scenario, and you can just copy that. And if you're using the inside ID, it can just like create the embedding for you. It's very easy to do. You need to validate if it is what you actually want. So all these things are before that, and finally, let's jump into the code a bit, setup and cleanup. It creates sort of a situation for you. So let's say I want to start testing from a point. Let's say an image that was voted for 3 times. So I want to see if I vote on it, it's going to be 4. I can call the APIs, or I can create a function, generative function that does this. This is not a test. This is a setup function, but it will get me there after I fill in all the blanks here, and it will run. And you see, that's a bit of code. Like if I want to get there, and then I ask for some cleanup, after I do the test. So I got this. That's a lot cleanup test data. Whole bunch of code here. If I would write this, like clean up after a vote, it means that cleaning all the hierarchy from the database, multiple API calls, so on. So it calls delete on all the things that I want. There's a lot of things that I might do, or if I don't have time for that, I will not do. And that's the thing, it gives us time to do more. So this saves me time. Need to see that it works. Most of the time it will, as long as the things are simple. Okay, obviously this will work. Couple of things more, generate. I asked it to generate a test. Yes. It actually went on to use unit test rather than pytest, which I imagined it would be so smart to do by itself. It didn't, but I asked, okay, whole test. It uses the setup and the teardown, cleanup and the setup for me, because it continued. It knew exactly what I wanted, sort of. So it created the test for incrementing the votes. Again, validate what it gives you. It's not like completely going to run immediately. Okay, so I got that, but I wanted a pytest test. Can you do this for me? Can you translate this? And bam, this is now a pytest test. So you can see how can you see that? Yeah, it's a fixture and stuff like that. It can transform things very safely, which is what I'm after. Okay, can it do another kind of transformation, refactoring? Well, yes, I asked it to refactor it. And this was like a very vague thing. Can you refactor to make it more readable? Obviously, if I would refactor it to do something, I would tell it what to refactor for, like a builder or a factory, stuff like that. I asked it to vaguely to see what will happen, and what it did, it create first of all a wrapper for calling the API, so a class that calls the APIs itself, and then extracted that, and the test was a lot shorter. Of course, you can ask it to do all the comments. Yeah, so that's about generation. Of course, you can do a lot of stuff, but let's continue because we don't have a lot of time. So we kind of planned everything, set up everything. We generated even tests. They run. Okay, what happens next? We did refactoring. Okay, so let's do a bit of analysis. So first of all, if you look at test here, the client. The client, when it calls the add thing, or is it add vote, you can see that it checks the status code. And I'm looking at this and I said, okay, cool. I don't want just to check that status happened. I mean, it's not a really good indication that the API actually worked. Can you do this better? And this is exactly what I asked. Like, method checks on the status code, update the code, include additional asserts. Well, like I said, if I would actually not testing this as I would actually ask for something more specific, but it actually did that. So if you look at the add vote now, it not only checks the status, but it also makes sure the ID is in there and that it's in the schema and it's a string and it's in the correct place, and whatever I sent in the request body comes up as a mirror in the doing a vote result. The image ID needs to come back as well. So a lot of assertions are here that make the call and the class a lot more robust. If something bad happens, I will know about it. Another thing of get to the point, which I asked is, okay, so get to a point is like, I want to get to a point, right? Before it was like a number of votes. This is very, if you want to come to a point where you actually want to either reuse something as a setup or you want to debug something, ask for something that will do things with random data. And I was surprised because it created a whole generator of votes. Now, this is like, wow. It's a lot of code. You can see how much code is in there. But now I have a random test data generator, and it creates votes and all kinds of stuff there, and distributions I can play with, and something that might be bad for me if I want to reproduce it. But if you, again, give it ideas of what you actually really want, you might have something that you can control. But you have to review all this code. So that's the one thing. And what I asked for, well, if there's a lot of JSON going around, maybe we could use the builder pattern. So I asked for the builder pattern. Refactor to use the builder pattern. And what you see here is like it created the builder. And you can see that this is a real builder with the things. But then it actually the main generator has all kinds of things in it using the builder. And it is complex and it's a lot more than I wanted, but it can give you an idea of what you can actually do with this. Final thing I want to show you is if you're really serious about your job and you want to create a bug report. So let's say if the test fails, generate a text for bug reports. That's something that QA might do, but maybe you want to do something like not just a report in Jenkins or TFNs, something that will create a bug report somewhere that will look like a bug, and it create a text that I can embed in the test itself, which is kind of cool. But yeah, why not go a step further and like send bug to Jira? So I asked it to create a script that will send the failure to open a ticket to Jira and report a bug and so on. So it took the text and embedded it inside it, like you see here. And you can do a lot of like small automation stuff that you might not get to, not want to do it, probably will not focus on that. But these kind of small steps can free up more time for writing more code, reviewing more code, which is a lot more of what we do with in the AI era. But at the end, create some quality code that you can be confident that is working. So back to my cats. Did I show you the final cat? Yeah, this is the reporter. It's important. Let's get back to my slides. So like I said, the whole idea is for us to move faster. How do we do this? Well, we might think that generating code would be the faster way to go. It's not. What we want to do is to run faster and not fall. So in order to do that, we kind of identify the things that we don't like to do, identify things that are repeated, things that can help us. And you can see like different things like planning and organizing and setting things up, useful things that might either do manually or repeatedly, or might even not do at all because it takes up too much time. The combination of all these things help us create a better API because it was tested thoroughly as much as we can say, because all the things that we did created more time for us to test it a lot more. And we come out with not just with code that works, with a suite of tests that we can trust and we can use, and it's easy to work with as long as we control the process. So what is the future? Well, we're going to finish this talk, but other than that, there's a lot of things that we do today that we might think about, like, why are we doing it like this? That's how we used to do it for the last 5-10 years. Yes, but there are ways of speeding this up, making this better. And we need to start thinking about not like we're going to press a button and the software will appear. I don't think this is truly coming. But in order for us to press a button and the software to appear to be working, there's a lot more we can do to think about all the small things, small tasks that we do that can speed up, free time for us, and work a code that will actually work at the end. And that's what I wanted to share with you today. So thanks for having me.